Oh, good morning or good afternoon. Robert, you
Cheers.
thought you were on your own then, didn't you?
I did. I did.
Hi, welcome. My name is Caroline Hill, Editor-in-Chief of Legal IT Insider. Welcome to Latera TV, and I'm joined by Robert Taylor, who is founder, CEO, and General Counsel of 360 Law Group. Hi, Robert. How are you doing?
Hi, Caroline. I'm good, thank you.
I was having trouble with my mouse. There's nothing like
It happens to the best of us.
having given very clear instructions on activating the camera. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got quite a lot to get through today. We've only got half an hour, but I thought what would be really helpful there'll be many people who are not familiar with 360 Law Group, but you've had a lot going on. You had a very busy year.
Yeah.
So I thought what would be really brilliant, we'll go through, talk a little bit about what the company is, what you do, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of your recent news. I know one of your things that you'd like to talk about is your proprietary technology is giving you an edge. To talk a little bit about that. And I think one of the reasons why, as we'll come on to explain why this is particularly relevant, is as in the US, so our audience listening in will be a mixture of UK and US. And in the US, it's exciting. They're just starting deregulation, and obviously
Indeed.
you have expanded your presence in the US recently, and which
Indeed,
we'll come on to talk about in a bit. So I appreciate you joining me. It's really good timing.
No problem.
Um, so so how So can you break down, tell us a bit about, you've got your three divisions. I'd love you to so you've got 360 Business Law, 360 Business Law America, 360 Law Services. Perhaps start from the very beginning.
Good idea. It's always the best place to start.
Let me take you back to 2014 when you set up.
Indeed.
How,
We
yeah.
we were quite lucky. I mean, when we looked to start the legal practice in the UK, just prior to that happening, a bit like what's going on in America now, really, is the UK government started to wake up and realise that they needed to provide a legal service in the UK that was much more focused on companies and private individuals. They needed to be able to lower the cost of legal services so they could get justice for much more people. And they tried to do this nicely by negotiating with the legal sector in the UK, but that didn't work, with no surprise there at all, but it didn't work. So they legislated in 2007, which came into force in 2011, and they brought something in called the Legal Services Act. Basically, it was a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and it deregulated massive amounts of the legal profession in the UK, and it allowed for only six areas of always the doorbell, 6 areas of law in the UK to be regulated, and they really quickly are litigation, audience at court, small area of commercial property law, notary public, commissioner of oaths, and wills and probate. That's it. Every other area of law in the UK then and now could be practiced by anyone. I mean, literally, qualified, non-qualified, it doesn't matter. So we set up one, taking advantage of that legislation purely and simply, but it gave us a much more ability to be able to create a much more commercial focused law firm, and that's what we did. And as you quite rightly said, we brought in different types of fee structures, things like subscription legal services, where we could charge a single premium to a client or company on a monthly basis and do all of their commercial contracts workload within that fee. And we wasn't the first one to do that, but we certainly since then have been the only company to do that on a global basis, which we now do. And CFOs love it because they can control of their entire legal spend through a single premium in every country where they operate. So they love it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on. No. So you started off. So the initial practice is entirely unregulated, and you've got your. And also I think we should point out it's a distributed workforce, isn't it?
Correct.
Lawyers, you don't have premises, and that remains the case today.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So you've got a virtual network, which is where the tech will become relevant, as we'll come on to. And you started out in the USA. actually you started in the US and Australia to start with, is that right? So obviously you were UK, US and Australia in terms of the initial unregulated practice, and then using solicitors, barristers and overseas attorneys.
Yeah, I mean, when we started it, we decided that we were going to do an unregulated practice, but we were only going to use qualified lawyers to run that regulated practice. And something that we, again, still now, 6 years later, feel is a really important feature. So, I mean, I've seen what they're trying to do in the States, and although the idea is good, I think the way they're running it could be wrong. So you're right, they did. I mean, the clients drove us to starting up our operations, as you say, in Australia and in Georgia. North America was the first places that we went to and started undertaking workload in there. And it's now spread to 63 countries worldwide, and there's about 240 of us, either being solicitors, barristers, or overseas attorneys. And in 2017, just to wrap that picture up from the regulated and unregulated.
Can I interrupt you? So 2014, so I think someone's going to walk into my office now, so we've got it all going on, despite specific instructions. So 2014, what sort of clients are you working for at that particular point? Is it corporate? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You don't mind me sort of interjecting,
No.
And but I just think it's relevant. So you're working with, it's largely corporates, is that right?
Largely corporates. We were operating with some consumers at that point in time, but it's largely corporates. It still is in the main largely corporates, although we are now doing much more consumer-based type of workload now as well. And we're doing that realistically through the regulated practice now, which we started in 2017, purely and simply because we were generating so much litigation workload that we needed a vehicle to run that through. And that's now expanded. Again, it's using consultant labor. It's still doing that on a global basis. So it's a completely distributed practice globally.
And describe it. So I know, So you, I want to come on to the regulated, unregulated a bit more, but because I know you've touched on it, but I think it's quite interesting. So you decide that you're expanding out. So you start with corporates, then you think actually you can benefit individuals, but the practice is still more largely companies, and it's a case of to describe. So we've had conversations about this, which is really interesting. So in practice, I understand the list of what you just said, but tell me in practice what it means. So obviously the Legal Services Act, it's about the type of work, but it's also about, you describe it much better than me, about the way that you deliver the legal services in terms of the infrastructure that you have to have. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you and then I'd love you to incorporate your price point as well, because I know you're very transparent about that. So if you took it, imagine I'm a client and I'm coming to you, and I can almost have a menu, can't I? So I can go, right, I can say I can have I can choose, which is really interesting. Under one umbrella, I can say, right, I want unregulated for this, and this is going to cost me £216 an hour if I'm on a subscription annual fee, and then I want this regulated because but describe how and why that works.
Okay, yeah, I mean you're right. It's actually very much client driven. Yeah. So and there was a two-pronged price structure, for want of a better word. In every country in the world, we have set a country price. Yeah. So corporates come along, they know exactly what the hourly rate charge is in Taiwan, in Australia, China, Russia, wherever they are during the world. Totally transparent. It's on our website, and it's in all of our contracts as well. Yeah. So they know exactly what they're getting for that, and they contract with us on an unregulated basis, and that means their liability and our liability is very much governed by contract. So it's a simple, normal commercial contract between normal organizations, exactly the same as it would be if you were supplying IT or whatever it was you were supplying. Whereas on the regulated side, it's slightly more, because we have to comply with SRA regulation rules in the UK. We have to hold PI insurance at 5 million now in the UK. So the costs of running that business are much, much more. So our hourly rate is slightly more on that side. It usually comes out about between 212 to 250, but it's capped at 250, depending on the type of services you're going to get. What I should say, I suppose, up front, is that most of our solicitors in the UK actually work for both services. So you will get the same lawyer for litigation, for instance, pre-litigation on the unregulated side at 155, and you'll get the same lawyer who's running it on a litigation basis at court at 212.50. Yeah. So it's just playing the system that we
Yeah.
have to play. I mean, and you know, from the point of view of corporate workload, for instance, or commercial, the client can choose whether or not he wants to run unregulated at 155 an hour, or whether he wants to run on a regulated basis at 212.50. Now, that may be a case if he perceives there to be more risk involved in that contract, yeah, and it's worth going regulated and receiving that PI insurance and all the other bits that go with that.
Interesting. So that's what drives a lot of it, is it? In terms of I guess in terms of the client's risk appetite, and I guess there must be. You mentioned litigation. So obviously you can't do litigation. That's one of those things where you can't do it in an unregulated company. So you could quite well have a client who you're doing, volume contract work for, and then they want you to take care of their litigation needs, and so that moves into the regulated side, as it were. That
is the case. I mean, we are I think the only company that now runs that basically for pre-litigation, i.e. pre-court claim, will do it unregulated. But as soon as it goes to being a court claim issued, or they're issuing one, then they have to do it regulated in the UK, and that's where there's that differential actually happens.
It seems strange, doesn't it, that you've got these two things?
Crazy, yeah.
And also you have to have, there are certain things in terms of perhaps this is a bit boring, but not to me. So in terms of the things that under the SRA, you have to provide certain titles. For example, the CULP and the COFA, which now it's going to escape me what those stand for. But in terms of, there are certain not boxes, because that demeans the role, but there are certain things that you have to ensure within the regulation practice that you kind of provide, right? It's interesting, isn't it? But you can just provide those under one umbrella, side by side, seamlessly. And has it been complicated? Has it been?
No, I mean, we've had a few stand-up battles with the SRA, but I mean, and we've obviously come out of them because we're still practicing. But no, it's not complicated to run it. I mean, they are two separate legal entities. We have, as you say, our CULP, which is our legal compliance officer, or our COFA, which is our financial officer, and they look after the funds that are in the company, and they do that on the regulated side. But the same two people actually work for the unregulated side and do a similar role, but they're just not governed by the SRA rules and regulations. So there's no, they can't be, there's no financial implications for them to do that. I think the main thing that we've done in our company, I mean, there's quite a few distributed practices out there. There's probably only one of us that's doing regulated and unregulated, but that's not a great step forward. Where we're majorly different is that we've done it completely distributed. We've not got that overhead spend. Our global overhead spend in all countries worldwide is sub 10% of turnover. It's minuscule. And as you touched on earlier, and I don't know whether it's the right time to bring it in or not, but our own proprietary IP has enabled us to keep the costs down really, really low. When we started this, we did like a lot of other law firms, and we went out and used third-party systems to do time and case management services, and after a while we realized that the cost of running them, as the number of lawyers increased, was huge. I mean, hundreds of thousands of pounds. So we built our own. And we think it's better. It's certainly simpler than most of those services, and it's cheap to run now for us. It costs us, I think, globally about $1,300 a month to run that for every single one of our consultants, and we operate cloud-based technology for all of our our email and all Office 365 and so forth. That again, at very reasonable costs, turn on the service and turn off, and it's enabled us to be able to run a practice with just a back office that manages it and pushes the workload around and does the administration, recruits the staff and does the finances, but on a very, very low cost basis. And it's that model that's really the secret of our success, and why we're able to bring in fees at 155 an hour in England and still pay solicitors, and many of them now, as you know, are joining us from Silver Circle, Magic Circle firms, and still pay them very good rates of pay, and giving the client also a very good hourly rate to operate off of.
Yeah.
And it's purely and simply that cost and that low overhead model that's enabling us to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the States. I think that's the same thing. You can do it in lots of ways, but you can still provide legal services with lawyers at lower costs.
So you've got, and so in terms of, I know you obviously swapped out a couple of the big systems, and so now within your own proprietary tech, and obviously you're not the kind of head of IT, but like
thank God for that, most would say.
But to dive in just a tiny bit, so you've obviously got matter management, so you've got time and billing, and you've got it's also a workflow tool, isn't it? In terms
Yes,
of
it
provides so it enables you. Well, just describe it as, just to tell us a bit more about. I mean, and you haven't got any. Have you got any? Obviously, you're using Word and 365.
Yeah.
Have you got but you haven't got any it's all proprietary
very,
tech?
very little other than that. I mean, our email signatures and stuff like that are run by third-party software because it's just not cost-effective enough to rebuild that. But the time and case management system takes it from when a matter comes in from a client on a straight, fixed email address. It's looked at by and triaged by our administrators, and it then goes into the system, and it's provided to the lawyers who then accept that workload or reject it based on their jurisdiction, based on their skill set, based on the area of law and the availability of those lawyers. Once they've accepted it, then their communication is with the client direct, so right the way through till the time that matter's actually finished, it's direct. What it also enables us to do is enables us to be able to, on a smartphone, have the client see what's going on all the matters globally, and also, again, complementing that price transparency, it can see the number of hours that the lawyer has logged on an individual matter and the cost implications of that as well. So he gets a total transparent view of his entire workload globally. From our point of view, it gives us the ability to be able to bring in BI and business metrics, and to look at what's going on globally, to look at how much money is in the pot that month and how much our costs are that month, and to do all of that workload with it.
Yeah, brilliant. And how long has that been the case? How long? I know it's been I know it's
been
an
like
ongoing.
A fourth bridge. Yeah.
It's an ongoing thing. I know. Then you're always, and I've had a demo. I know you're always tweaking and evolving. But how long would you say that you've been going down that route and using your, building as opposed to buying? I suppose we would articulate it as.
I would say now coming up for 4 years. So we went down that initial route of using third-party technology, and it was only when the company really started getting to a mass where it was becoming significant cost that we looked at it and thought, yes, and with us, because of the subscription legal service and the way that is billed, and the way that we charge in advance, and it's come against it, it's really unusual for systems to be able to do that. So we had systems that were costing us a fortune but actually weren't delivering, and that's the reason that we actually built our own software. It was purely and simply for that.
And I guess also it creates it's simpler, isn't it? You don't have, I think if you were having to, oh God, I hated doing 6-minute time, but but if you having to do that, but because of the way that you have your flat fee and your subscription model, and your annual, and your pricing is actually a lot more straightforward, isn't it? So in terms of, you don't actually need a hugely complex system in order to facilitate that.
No, I mean we do a very wide array of bespoke costing for clients. So, I mean, we do everything from fixed price through to sort of as I say, capped fees. We'll do hourly rates. We'll do subscriptions. So we'll do all of it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
okay,
but the system will take care of that, and that's the reason that we developed it, really. So we could have that and give that flexibility to the client, and as I say, look after those costs, but still at the same time ensure that our consultants are well remunerated.
What did you notice? I mean, I suppose it wasn't one day to the next, suddenly it changed overnight, but I mean, what if you could put a price, if you could put a cost saving, have you measured what the cost saving was if you were to compare perhaps year one on year to year Yeah, if we take when you started to phase out by, and what would the cost saving be roughly?
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a rough idea of that now.
Sorry to put you on the spot. If
It would have cost us 12,000 a month just to run a third-party system.
Okay, and you'll say, and then you'll
Just at
say,
current size now.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come on to your results, which I know obviously you've just, in fact, I've just published them today, and
Yeah.
in fact, let's talk about it now. Why not? So
Yeah.
your results have been, I think you've grown 65% revenue year on year for the last how many years? 4 years, 5 years?
Since inception, so coming up 6 years now. Yeah.
6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And you put that down to obviously. I guess there's. I mean, let's talk about. So obviously in the UK, we've had a longer chance to kind of get to grips. Obviously, since the Legal Services Act, although as I've spoken to you about before, it happened quite slowly in my view. When the Legal Services Act came into force, I was there. I was a mainstream legal journalist, and when it came into force the next day, we were sitting there going, "What's going to happen?" And nothing happened for ages, absolutely ages. And then suddenly,
but it's easy. Why though, isn't it? It's easy to see why, because the lawyers just shut up about it, and no one spoke, and the clients never found out.
And then we had a few, like there was going to be Tesco law, and then obviously it wasn't going to be Tesco law. So obviously we've had, but you tell me about what you're doing in America. I'm dotting all over the place here, Robert. I said I was going to talk about your results, but we'll come on to that in a minute, actually. So tell me about what you're doing in America, because I know that one of the reasons why you're doing well is your expansion. But I'm curious, and I want to make sure that we have time to address this before we run out of time. What kind of service are you providing in the US? Because obviously the US is still relatively restricted. So how is it working in terms of your expanding your Washington headquarters?
We're doing it exactly the same way. So the services that we're providing are exactly the same as they are in the UK. So the subscription services going over there, the hourly rate services going over there. It's very much akin with the UK sort of hourly rates. It's about on average about 165 an hour sterling in the US. We're recruiting heavily now in the US. We've got existing clients in the US, and we've had them since 5 years probably now. Some of those being NASDAQ quoted companies where we represent them, I think in 35 countries in one case, worldwide. So we've been running those NASDAQ quoted companies for quite some time over there, and we're looking to obviously expand that. But the model we're going in at is exactly the same. Obviously there's some complications because you need to have lawyer ownership over there at the moment. So we've got over that one, but ostensibly the model is exactly the same. Everyone will be a qualified lawyer, exactly the same as they are the world over. But it's because of our overhead model, because of the reduced costs that we run under, that we're able to provide the same cost savings for clients that we do over here.
But the market is very different, isn't it? So because what you said about needing to be, it's not deregulated in the way that it is. And although we're seeing starts in Utah and Arizona, and that's kind of exciting. But so obviously the difference. So you need to be headed by lawyers, you've just said. And then in terms of there's not this concept of regulated and unregulated. No. It's not like you've got this sort of side by side menu at all. But are you able to provide the same kind of subscription? There's no reason why you can't provide the same kind of annual subscription. No. So is that and how's that doing? Is that popular?
It is, because the largest client that we've got in the US at the moment is running that subscription legal service. It's not doing it in the US at the moment. It's actually doing it in Australia, France, and the UK, because that's where it chooses its workloads, maximum, and where we can service it best. But the chances are that will start to happen in the US as well. It's been well received. I mean, Ben Lambert, who I think you've met as well, haven't you? Who's running the US side of our business, ex-Baker McKenzie. He's having a field day over there at the moment. He's in recruiting mode. He's in talking to client mode, which is going very well at the moment. So I don't see the US market being other than being vastly bigger, much different than it is to the UK. I'm not seeing it. I mean, I'm speaking to US potential clients now, and they're all the same thing. They're all looking to save costs. They're all, they all are very conscious of the sort of monies that they're spending on counsel to get a service over there. and something needs to be done, and I think they're very conscious of that. And I think that's exactly what happened in the UK. You're saying about there was no big impact of the Legal Services Act, and there wasn't until we started climbing on the bandwagon and a few others and shouting, going, there can be a difference, chaps, and you can get the costs for lower price, until that started to get into the corporate environment over there, and you started to see the larger companies in the UK, as you now know that we're dealing with some of those, started waking up and going, hang on a second, I can pay for this lawyer who's X, and you know where I'm going with this one. If I paid for him on his normal company, it would be £700 an hour, but
Yeah.
I can get him for 155 here.
Yeah.
As soon as
Yeah.
they start seeing that reality, and they know that they're not going to be losing, that they're going to get the same quality of service, then I think people start waking up, and I think that's happened in the UK now in a big way. We've seen it, a massive change in our
Yeah.
clients. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about the clients a bit. I mean, I know you had you've had a couple of announcements recently. And she said scrolling down as quick as you can. So Timico was one
Yeah,
where they are a UK IT managed service
yeah.
provider. And there are other big clients are they in the public domain? Are you able to talk about your clients a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of FTSE 100 and 250 companies that have been with us now for some time. They're not reference clients, so I can't obviously talk about them. We've got some NASDAQ quoted
Yeah.
companies, as you know, that have been with us now for I think 3 or 4 years. Yeah, we've got a few Middle East clients now that are multinational and multi-billion-dollar organisations,
Yeah.
and we're now talking to public companies in the UK, especially since COVID, um,
Right.
that are looking to put the first parts of that service with us. What usually happens is usually those commercial contracts
Yeah.
type of workload that comes across, and when they see that they're being serviced well, we run SLAs on all our workloads, so they'll get contract workload back within 48 hours of it coming into us.
Yeah.
Once they start seeing that they're getting that service, then we start seeing an increase in the types of service we provide in those companies.
With your subscription, we're starting to run out of
Yeah.
time, which is annoying. But
Okay.
so with your subscription-based service, so one of the models that I like is the retainer type model, where
Yeah.
there's not the pitch process, which I think is quite disruptive, and also it makes it kind of an almost combative sort of process. Although from
Yes.
you can understand why corporates need to do it from a cost perspective if you haven't got this sort of model.
Yeah.
Does it mean that you're more of an extension, the subscription model? Does it mean that you're more of a sort of extension of their in-house team? Is that the effect that it has?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we do become that because because there's no cap on it. It's not the retainer model. There's an absolute seal on it. It's going to cost you 4,000 a month for these 3 countries for all of your commercial contracts work. It doesn't matter the volume of that, whether it's 10 contracts a month or 50 contracts a month. The price is not going to go up. It remains completely static. And because of that, whereas it used to be funneled through the general counsel if they've got one, or through the CFO, what's tending to happen there is they're saying to the sales force, okay, just put all your workload to 360, because it doesn't matter, yeah, how much goes through it. So and that makes a big difference if you think about it, because that way around they can then get everything done as quickly as they can.
Okay, that's it. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, we sort of so but that works for you. I mean, you'd have thought
It
that then,
works
because
very
with
well
the
for us.
with the
Yeah,
retainer model, there used to have to be lots of checks and balances. In terms of
yeah.
have we, that along the way, the few examples that we've seen that you have to sort of check along the way whether it's working for both parties, because if you're getting
Yeah.
too much work, then the price point doesn't work for you. But you haven't had that as much.
In 6 years of running that model, we have only on one occasion ever come down to the stage where it's got close to not making profit.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And what we do to find that out, because we obviously we learn lessons over the years of doing it,
Yeah.
but we run a trial period of 3 months. So we set
Okay.
a price, we run a period of 3 months. Yeah, we look at the volumes that have gone through to make sure that it's the whole thing's been revealed of what they do comes, what average comes through,
Yeah.
and then we set the price again for a further 12 months once that 3 month trial is over. In the main, 99% of the time, the price that we set at the beginning is the price that runs for 12 months.
That's
So
awesome.
it works very well.
Do you know what? We've run out of time. What I'm going to do, so on legaltechnology.com, I've published your results of the story about your
Yeah,
results. So anyone watching this who wants to know more about that, go to legaltechnology.com and look up 360 Law Group. And we've got the group has reported 65% year-on-year turnover for the last 6 years, as we just said. And what I'll do is I'll put a link at the bottom of those to a couple of the other news stories. If people want
yeah,
to catch up
perfect.
on other announcements, read Timico in more detail. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk again in the not too
Love
distant
to.
future.
That would be
All
great.
right,
Look forward
Robert,
to it.
great pleasure chatting to you. Thank you.
And you. Cheers, Caroline.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.